The gunshot echoed across the valley. Cole Blackwood stood frozen on the porch. For a moment, he could hear nothing except the rain. Then Evelyn whispered behind him. Someone fired that shot from the cemetery. Cole grabbed his rifle. Stay here. Evelyn shook her head. I'm coming. Cole turned. No. You don't understand. My father told me about that cemetery. Cole stared at her. What did he tell you? Evelyn stepped onto the porch. He said if the sheriff ever rode there after midnight, someone was going to die. Cole looked toward the distant cemetery. A lone rider was disappearing between the old wooden grave markers. The rider was heading toward the Blackwood family graves. Cole tightened his grip on the rifle. Then we find out why. They mounted 2 horses and rode into the storm. The rain had turned the trail into thick mud. Neither of them spoke. The cemetery was nearly a mile from the ranch, sitting on a small hill surrounded by dead trees. When Cole reached the gate, he noticed something strange. A horse stood tied to an old wooden post. Cole dismounted. It was the sheriff's horse. But Mason was nowhere to be seen. Evelyn climbed down beside him. Where is he? Cole slowly looked around. I don't know. They entered the cemetery. Lightning flashed across the sky. For a moment, the entire graveyard became visible. Then darkness returned. Cole walked toward his family's graves. His father's grave. His mother's. His brother's. His sister's. All 4 stood beneath the same old oak tree. But something was different. The ground beside his father's grave had been disturbed. Cole knelt down. Fresh mud covered the earth. Someone had been digging. Evelyn stepped closer. There. She pointed toward the ground. A small metal box was half buried beneath the mud. Cole pulled it out. The box was old and badly scratched. There was a symbol carved into the lid. The same silver star Evelyn had shown him earlier. Cole looked at her. This is the same mark. Evelyn nodded. My father told me to look for it. Cole opened the box. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a small brass key, and a bloodstained pocket watch. Cole picked up the watch. His face changed. He recognized it. It belonged to my father. Evelyn looked at him. How do you know? I gave it to him myself. Cole remembered the night of the massacre. His father had been wearing that watch. It had disappeared after the murders. Cole unfolded the paper. There were only a few words written on it. The 5th man was not an outsider. Cole stared at the sentence. What does that mean? Evelyn's voice was quiet. There were 5 men that night. Yes. My father always believed 4 were hired guns. Cole looked at her. And the 5th? He believed the 5th man belonged to your family. Cole's expression hardened. That's impossible. Is it? Cole stood. My family was murdered. I know. Why would one of them help the killers? I don't know. A sudden sound came from behind the graves. A branch snapped. Cole raised his rifle. Who's there? No answer. He moved slowly between the graves. Then he saw a man's hand lying in the mud. Cole rushed forward. A wounded man was lying behind an old stone marker. He was barely conscious. Blood covered his coat. Cole turned him over. The man opened his eyes. Crowe. Cole froze. What about Crowe? The wounded man coughed. Too late. Where is he? The man looked toward the cemetery gate. He was here. When? Minutes ago. Cole looked around. Where did he go? The man grabbed Cole's coat. You don't understand. Tell me. Crowe wasn't the leader. Cole's eyes narrowed. Then who was? The wounded man struggled to breathe. He was taking orders. From whom? The man looked directly at Evelyn. His expression changed. You. Evelyn stepped backward. You know me? The man nodded weakly. Your father. What about my father? He knew the truth. Cole leaned closer. What truth? The wounded man whispered. The fifth man wasn't working for the sheriff. Cole frowned. Then who was he working for? The man's eyes moved toward the Blackwood family graves. He was working for someone inside the Blackwood family. Evelyn covered her mouth. Cole stood completely still. For 10 years, he had believed strangers had destroyed his family. For 10 years, he had hunted men who had already disappeared. Now he was being told that someone carrying the Blackwood name had helped murder them. Cole looked toward the graves. Who? The wounded man tried to speak. But before he could answer, another gunshot echoed through the cemetery. The man's body went limp. Evelyn screamed. Cole spun around. At the far end of the cemetery stood a dark figure holding a rifle. Lightning flashed. For one brief second, Cole saw his face. Daniel Crowe. Cole raised his rifle. Crowe. The figure turned and disappeared behind the trees. Cole started after him. Evelyn grabbed his arm. Wait. He killed that man. He wanted us to find him. Cole stopped. Evelyn pointed toward the ground. A small brass key lay beside the wounded man's hand. Cole picked it up. What does it open? Evelyn looked at the key. My father had one just like it. Cole stared at her. Where? At our old house. And what was inside? Evelyn's face went pale. I never found out. Cole looked toward the dark forest where Crowe had disappeared. Then back at the Blackwood graves. Someone inside his own family had helped destroy everything he loved. And somewhere in the darkness, Daniel Crowe was waiting for them to discover why. Cole slipped the key into his coat. We're going back to the ranch. Evelyn nodded. But we're not alone. Cole looked at her. What do you mean? She pointed toward the muddy ground. There were fresh boot prints leading away from the cemetery. 3 different sets. One belonged to the sheriff. One belonged to Crowe. And the third belonged to someone Cole recognized immediately. His own uncle. Cole's face went cold. He was here. Evelyn whispered. And he knows we found the box. Another flash of lightning illuminated the cemetery. Far away, a horse began running toward the ranch. Cole mounted his horse. Then we'd better get there first. He looked once more at his family's graves. For 10 years, he had searched for the men who killed his family. Now he finally knew the truth. The killer hadn't only been outside his home that night. Someone from inside the family had opened the door. Cole and Evelyn rode through the darkness without stopping. The rain had weakened, but the clouds still covered the moon. Behind them, the cemetery disappeared into the night. Cole's thoughts were racing. His uncle. The same man who had helped raise him after his parents died. The same man who had stood beside their graves. The same man who had spent 10 years telling Cole that the killers were strangers. Cole couldn't understand it. What's your uncle's name? Evelyn asked. Samuel Blackwood. Where does he live? He has a small ranch north of mine. Evelyn became silent. Cole noticed. What? My father mentioned him. Cole slowed his horse. When? Before he died. What did he say? Evelyn looked toward the dark road. He said Samuel was the only Blackwood who survived the night without being injured. Cole's eyes narrowed. I never thought about that. You were 27. Your family was dead. You were looking for answers. Cole said nothing. Evelyn continued. My father believed Samuel knew more than he admitted. Why didn't he tell me? He tried. Cole looked at her. When? 3 months before he died. Did he meet Samuel? Evelyn nodded. They argued. About what? The land. Cole stopped his horse. What land? Evelyn turned toward him. The Blackwood property. Cole stared at her. My father discovered that your family owned more land than everyone believed. How much? Almost 12,000 acres. Cole's expression changed. He had never known that. His father had always told him the ranch was valuable because of the cattle and water. But if the land itself was worth a fortune, everything suddenly made sense. The sheriff wanted the land, Cole said. Evelyn nodded. My father believed he was working with someone who could legally claim it after your family died. Samuel. Maybe. Cole looked toward the horizon. What did my father own that they needed? A deed. Cole frowned. A deed? A land deed covering the entire northern valley. Cole remembered something. After the massacre, the original property documents had disappeared. His uncle had told him the papers were destroyed in the fire. Cole had believed him. But now he wasn't sure. They reached the ranch just before sunrise. The house was dark. Too dark. Cole dismounted and pulled his rifle from the saddle. Stay behind me. They approached the back door. It was open. Cole froze. The lock had been broken. They entered quietly. Drawers had been pulled out. Papers covered the floor. The old wooden cabinet stood open. Someone had searched the house. Evelyn looked around. They were looking for something. Cole walked toward the table. The photograph was gone. So was the burned piece of cloth. Cole's jaw tightened. They know. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Cole raised his rifle. Who's there? Silence. He moved toward the staircase. Evelyn followed. At the top was an old bedroom that had belonged to Cole's father. The door was open. Inside, everything had been disturbed. Cole walked to the old desk. He remembered seeing it as a child. He opened the bottom drawer. Nothing. Then he noticed a small scratch on the wooden floor. He moved the desk. Underneath was a hidden compartment. Inside was an envelope. Cole opened it. There was a letter. The handwriting belonged to his father. Cole began reading. My son. If you are reading this, then I am already dead. There are men who want this ranch. They do not want the cattle. They want the valley. I discovered that someone close to us has been giving information to Sheriff Mason. I don't know how far the betrayal goes. But I know this. Do not trust Samuel. Cole stopped breathing. Evelyn stepped closer. What does it say? Cole handed her the letter. She read it. At the bottom was one final sentence. If Samuel comes to you after my death, do not believe him. Cole stared at the words. His uncle had been lying for 10 years. A sound came from outside. Horse hooves. Cole moved toward the window. A rider was approaching the ranch. He recognized the horse. Samuel. Evelyn looked at Cole. What will you do? Cole picked up his rifle. I'll ask him why. Samuel rode into the yard and dismounted. He looked older than Cole remembered. His beard was gray. His coat was covered with dust. He entered the house without knocking. Cole. Cole stood across the room. Where were you last night? Samuel stopped. What? The cemetery. Samuel's expression changed for half a second. Then he smiled. I don't know what you're talking about. Cole raised the letter. Then explain this. Samuel stared at the paper. His face became pale. Where did you find that? Under my father's desk. Samuel looked toward Evelyn. You brought her here. Yes. You should have let her die. The room became silent. Cole's rifle rose. What did you say? Samuel realized his mistake. He reached for his revolver. Cole aimed directly at him. Don't. Samuel stopped. Evelyn stepped forward. You knew my father. Samuel looked at her. I knew Thomas. You knew he was investigating the massacre. Yes. And you knew the sheriff was behind it. Samuel lowered his eyes. I knew enough. Cole's voice became cold. You were there that night. Samuel didn't answer. You opened the gate. Still nothing. You let them into our home. Samuel finally looked at Cole. I had no choice. Cole's face hardened. You always had a choice. Samuel shook his head. You don't understand what Mason threatened to do. He threatened you. He had your father's debts. Cole frowned. My father had no debts. Not to the bank. Samuel took a breath. To Mason. Evelyn stepped closer. What does that mean? Samuel looked at her. Your father found out Mason was using illegal land contracts to take ranches from families. Cole stared at him. And my father discovered it. Yes. Then why did you help him? Samuel's eyes filled with regret. Because Mason had already taken control of half the valley. Cole lowered his rifle slightly. You could have warned us. I tried. No. Cole's voice shook with anger. You chose money. Samuel looked down. I chose survival. A sudden gunshot shattered the window. Samuel fell to the floor. Cole spun toward the window. A dark figure stood across the road. Daniel Crowe. Cole fired. Crowe disappeared behind the trees. Evelyn rushed to Samuel. He was bleeding from the shoulder. Who shot you? She asked. Samuel looked at Cole. Crowe. Cole stared toward the forest. Why would he shoot you? Samuel struggled to breathe. Because he knows. Cole knelt beside him. Knows what? Samuel grabbed Cole's sleeve. Mason wasn't the one who ordered the massacre. Cole froze. What? Samuel's eyes filled with fear. There was another man. Who? Samuel looked toward the door. Then whispered. The man who owns the land. Cole's face went pale. Our land? Samuel nodded. And that man? He stopped. Outside, horses suddenly approached. Dozens of them. Samuel's eyes widened. Mason is here. Cole stood. Evelyn looked through the broken window. A line of armed riders was surrounding the ranch. Cole loaded his rifle. Samuel slowly reached for his revolver. Cole looked at him. You're going to help us? Samuel nodded. I owe your family 10 years of truth. Outside, Sheriff Mason's voice echoed through the darkness. Cole Blackwood. Cole stepped toward the door. Mason shouted again. Come outside, or everyone in that house dies. Cole looked at Evelyn. Then at Samuel. The three of them understood. There would be no running this time. The truth had finally caught up with them. And before sunrise, someone was going to pay for 10 years of blood. Come outside, or everyone in that house dies. Sheriff Mason's voice echoed across the ranch. Cole Blackwood stood beside the broken window, his rifle resting against his shoulder. Outside, at least a dozen armed riders surrounded the house. Evelyn stood near the fireplace. Samuel was still bleeding from the shoulder, but he had managed to get back on his feet. Cole looked at him. "You said you owe my family the truth." Samuel nodded. "Then tell me now." Samuel took a painful breath. "The man who ordered your family's deaths wasn't Mason." Cole stared at him. "Who was it?" Samuel looked toward Evelyn. Her father knew. Evelyn stepped closer. "My father knew who?" Samuel's eyes lowered. "The man who owned the debt against your family's land." Cole's face tightened. "What debt?" Samuel explained that years before the massacre, Cole's father had borrowed money to expand the ranch. The loan had been legitimate, but the lender had secretly transferred the contract to a powerful land investor. That investor wanted the entire northern valley. "He couldn't legally take your land," Samuel continued. "So Mason was paid to create a reason." Cole's voice became cold. "The massacre." Samuel nodded. "The sheriff made it look like an outlaw attack." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "And my father discovered it." "Yes. That's why he was killed." Samuel nodded. Cole looked toward the armed riders outside. "Who is the investor?" Samuel hesitated. Then he said a name. "Victor Hale." Cole had heard the name before. Hale owned several banks and cattle companies across the territory. He was one of the richest men in the region. Cole shook his head. "He never came near this valley." "He didn't need to," Samuel replied. "He had men to do it for him." Evelyn suddenly remembered her father's words. "He told me once that the richest man in the West never gets his hands dirty." Cole looked at her. "And now we know why." A gunshot struck the wall. Dust fell from the ceiling. Mason shouted from outside. "Last chance, Blackwood." Cole looked at Samuel. "Can you shoot?" Samuel picked up his revolver. "With one arm." Cole smiled faintly. "Good enough." He turned toward Evelyn. "When I open that door, stay behind us." Evelyn shook her head. "No." Cole frowned. "I can help." "You don't have a weapon." Evelyn reached into her bag. Then she pulled out the brass key from the cemetery. "I have something better." Cole stared at it. "What does that open?" "The old safe in the barn." Samuel suddenly looked alarmed. "The safe?" Evelyn nodded. "My father told me it contained the original land records." Cole's eyes widened. "If we get those records, Hale can't claim the valley." "And Mason can't hide what he did," Evelyn said. Another gunshot hit the porch. Cole made his decision. "Then we get the records." The three moved through the back of the house. Cole and Samuel covered the doorway while Evelyn ran toward the barn. Two riders spotted her. "She's there." They raised their rifles. Cole fired first. One rider fell from his horse. Samuel fired with his injured arm and forced the second man behind cover. Evelyn reached the barn. She unlocked the old metal safe. Inside was a bundle of papers wrapped in oilcloth. She grabbed them. Then she saw something else. A small black ledger. She opened it. Page after page contained names, payments and dates. At the top of several pages was one name. Sheriff Mason. And beneath it were payment records from Victor Hale. Evelyn smiled through her tears. "We have you." Suddenly, Daniel Crowe appeared in the barn doorway. Evelyn froze. Crowe raised his revolver. "You should give me that ledger." Evelyn stepped backward. "Why?" "Because Mason will kill you if he gets it." "You work for him." Crowe shook his head. "Not anymore." "Then why did you shoot Samuel?" Crowe lowered his weapon. Because he was going to betray us. Us? Crowe looked toward the ranch. Mason and Hale. Evelyn stared at him. You were there that night. Yes. You killed Cole's family. Crowe's face hardened. I was hired to scare them into leaving. Evelyn's voice trembled. But they died. I didn't fire the first shot. Who did? Crowe looked toward the ranch. Mason. Evelyn stepped closer. Why are you helping us now? Crowe's eyes became distant. Because Hale killed my brother when he refused to follow orders. Evelyn lowered the ledger. You want revenge? Crowe nodded. I want justice. Before she could say anything else, a bullet struck the barn wall. Crowe pulled Evelyn behind a wooden post. Mason. Outside, Sheriff Mason shouted. Crowe. Step away from her. Crowe smiled bitterly. You should have killed me when you had the chance. Mason shouted again. Give me the ledger. Crowe looked at Evelyn. Run. Evelyn grabbed the papers and ran through the back of the barn. Crowe stepped into the doorway and fired. Mason's men scattered. Cole saw Evelyn running toward him. Did you get it? She held up the ledger. Yes. Cole smiled. Then a gunshot echoed. Crowe stumbled out of the barn. Blood covered his chest. Evelyn screamed. Cole ran toward him. Crowe fell to his knees. Cole. Cole caught him. Who shot you? Crowe looked toward the ranch. Mason. Cole looked up. Sheriff Mason stood near the porch. His revolver was smoking. Cole slowly placed Crowe on the ground. Then he picked up his rifle. Mason smiled. You've always been a stubborn man. Cole walked toward him. You killed my family. Mason laughed. I followed orders. From Hale. Yes. Cole's jaw tightened. And my uncle? Mason glanced toward Samuel. Samuel wanted money. Samuel looked away. Cole shook his head. You destroyed my family for land. Mason shrugged. That's how the West works. Cole raised his rifle. No. He looked around at the ranch. At least not anymore. Mason reached for his revolver. Cole fired first. The bullet struck Mason's gun hand. The sheriff dropped his weapon and fell to his knees. His men immediately surrendered when they saw the ledger in Evelyn's hands. By sunrise, the ranch was quiet. The surviving riders had been disarmed. Mason was tied to the porch. Samuel sat beside the barn with his injured shoulder bandaged. Daniel Crowe was alive, but barely. Evelyn stood beside Cole as the first sunlight appeared over the valley. Cole looked at the old family cemetery. For 10 years, I thought revenge would bring them back. Evelyn stood beside him. It won't. I know. Cole took a long breath. But the truth can give them justice. He turned toward Sheriff Mason. Then toward the ledger in Evelyn's hands. That's what we'll give them. Later that morning, federal marshals arrived in the valley after Evelyn sent the evidence to the nearest town. The ledger, land records, and Mason's confession were enough to expose the entire scheme. Victor Hale was arrested weeks later. Sheriff Mason was sentenced for murder and corruption. Samuel testified against him. Daniel Crowe survived and disappeared from the territory after giving his statement. As for Cole and Evelyn, they remained at the Blackwood Ranch. Months later, Cole rebuilt the old family home. One evening, Evelyn stood on the porch watching the sunset. Cole joined her. You ever regret coming here? She smiled. Every night I spent running. Then she looked at him. But not this. Cole smiled. For the first time in 10 years, the Blackwood Ranch was quiet. No gunshots. No riders. No shadows waiting in the darkness. Only the sound of wind moving through the grass. Cole walked toward the cemetery one final time. He stood before his family's graves. I know the truth now. He placed his father's old pocket watch on the grave. And I'm sorry it took me so long. Evelyn stood behind him. Cole looked toward the horizon. The lies are over. The sun disappeared behind the mountains. And for the first time since the night his family was murdered, Cole Blackwood walked away from their graves without carrying revenge in his heart. He carried something stronger. The truth.